Hello everybody and welcome to a new video on the Mirror Lessons channel, and in this episode I'm going to talk about a wide-angle lens for the Sony full-frame system, the 20mm 1.8. And let me explain why I bought this lens. So I own two A7 cameras, the A7 Mark III and the A7R Mark III, and the main reason I have these two cameras is for review and comparison purposes on my YouTube channel or on my website mirrorlesscomparison.com. But occasionally my wife and I use these two cameras to cover small events around the area where we live, and we use a set of 1.8 prime lenses to keep the system as compact as possible, and it works quite well for us. And having two A7 bodies means that we can use two different lenses at the same time, which is great. But we were lacking a wide-angle option. And despite being a good selection of wide-angle prime lenses from Sony and third-party manufacturers, I wasn't really convinced by any of them, and perhaps I was a bit picky about it, but I was looking for something that wasn't too big, but not too small either, not too expensive. And when the Sony announced the 20mm 1.8, it looked like it was ticking all the boxes. So I bit the bullet and just bought one. And I bought one just before the whole COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown started, so I haven't used the lens as much as I thought I would, but it's been several months now, and I've gathered enough sample images that I can talk about it. So let's get started. And here I have the lens, 1.8, 20mm 1.8G on the A7R Mark III. And the first thing I like about this lens is the size, because it's very lightweight, it's compact, but not too small either. So if you want to grab the lens, use two hands, you do have a good ergonomics. It only weighs 373 grams, and it fits the A7 Mark III or the A7R Mark III body really well. The lens is very functional, so you have an aperture ring here that it's precise to use, and the aperture ring can be declicked as well with the switch here, so you can declick it for video work if you need to. And then we have a function button right here and the autofocus manual focus switch. So in terms of controls, it's quite complete despite not being a G Master lens, which is really good. And the function button is great because you can assign a lot of different settings to it. So if you go into custom key settings in the menu of your camera and scroll down to the third page, you can see that there is the focus hold button. That's how Sony calls the function button on this lens and any other lens for that matter. If you click on it, you can see that there's lots of different options you can use. And it's really great. For example, you can even start IF if you want. You can start the autofocus itself. So there's lots of different options. It's a nice thing to have on a lens. Then we have the focus ring, which is very smooth, but I would say a bit too smooth. And it's a fly-by-wire focus ring, so you won't get the same precision as a proper mechanical ring. But when you're trying to focus really close in manual focus, you're gonna have to go back and forth a little bit to really fine-tune the focus point where you want. So it can be slightly imprecise. And I would say this is the only negative thing I found about this lens. But if you're happy with just autofocus, the lens has a very fast AF motor. It's silent. It's very fast and it works well on the A7 Mark III, the A7R Mark III, I'm sure many other A7 cameras. Right, now let's talk about optical quality, and let's begin by looking at a few sample images. So you might have noticed an astrophotography shot in the samples I just showed you, so let's begin with that. The 20mm 1.8 is a very good fit to capture the night sky. It's wide enough to have a good amount of Milky Way in your frame, stars are razor sharp at 1.8 already, and there is very little comb aberration. So the combination of wide angle, fast aperture and close focus distance can be interesting to work with. And the 20mm can focus as short as 18 cm or 19 cm if you use autofocus. And that's enough to capture close-up of an object like, for example, a watch. Here you can see that sharpness at 1.8 is good, but you can stop down to have more of the object in focus, better sharpness, and the short distance will help you maintain a good amount of shallow depth of field. And the autofocus areas are quite pleasant to the eye. Outdoor with larger subjects, it can be a bit more difficult to take advantage of the shallow depth of field, and the reason is because this is a wide-angle lens, and as soon as you're not focusing at the closest focus distance, the shallow depth of field, even 1.8, can be much more subtle to work with. And unless your subject really stand out from the rest of the frame, you might get too distracted by what's in the background, left and right. But with the right composition, the right elements, and the right distance, you can achieve interesting results. It won't always work, but you can experiment and have fun with the lens. The bokeh can be pleasant, with nice rounded circles that are clean, and their shapes is well preserved even at the edge of the frame. As you can imagine, the lens is razor sharp once it's stopped down, so it makes it a very good fit for landscape as well. And I have to say, I kind of like this angle of view of the 20mm. I'm not a big fan of extremely wide shots for landscape. I find them more difficult to use, whereas 20mm seems to be a good middle ground and I quite enjoy it. I didn't get the chance to take a lot of architecture shots so far, but the lens is wide enough to capture small rooms like my office for example, so definitely a good one for indoor work as well. Right, I guess you're curious to see exactly how the lens performs when it comes to sharpness and the various apertures, both at the centers and at the corners, so let's have a look at that. You can see that sharpness is already very good at 1.8 at the center. The lens peaks around f4 and remains decent up to f11. f16 is still usable, whereas f22 shows more diffraction. Corners are a bit soft at 1.8 and f2, but they get noticeably better from f2.8. I've decided to base this review more on my personal experience with the lens, so I didn't go as in-depth as I usually go, testing all the different aspects with the optical quality. But based on all the shots I've taken so far, I can say that distortion and vignetting is a non-issue, especially once you assign the lens profile. There is very little chromatic aberration, even at 1.8, and there is a bit of lens flare, like small ghost and rainbow flares, but they never really bother me. Right, that's a wrap for this episode and I hope you enjoyed it. And my final verdict of this lens is I really like it. For me, it ticks all the boxes that I need for my personal use when it comes to optical quality, size and design. And also, it's not the cheapest lens you're gonna find for a lens of this kind for the Sony full-frame system, but it's not the most expensive either. And I think for the quality you get, the price is competitive. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any question, as usual, you can leave a comment down below and I'll answer as soon as I can. Thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye bye.